So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this instalment of Harper McLeod's Marine Economy Week. I'll start with some introductions if I can. I am Ewan Perry. I am a partner in Harper McLeod and I head the firm's major projects and infrastructure team. I'm delighted to have two distinguished guests with me this evening from Orkneys Islands Council. We have James Buck, who is Head of Marine Service and Transportation for the Council and the Harbour Master for the Statutory Harbour Authority. We also have Gareth Watterson, who is Corporate Director of Enterprise and Sustainable Development and Regeneration within the Council. Gents, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to take part. I'm hoping that we can have a really interesting conversation about all things marine, affecting clearly an island. So marine is really important to you, but specifically, obviously, we're aware that you have some quite big and quite important investment decisions underway within the Council at the moment. I wondered, Jim, coming to you first, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the existing harbour infrastructure within the island, and maybe at a high level, the kind of role you feel that maybe plays in the island's marine economy.
Yep. So the council, in its role as statutory harbour authority, is responsible for basically the entire marine infrastructure of the islands itself. So what do I mean by that? That's 29 piers and harbours. It's Scapa Flow in its entirety. It's the approaches to Kirkwall. And part of those 29 piers and harbours is the ferries to and from the island, but also in between the islands. And so we have facilities from, Stromness, which provides, the main connection to Scrabster and the mainland as a ferry terminal, but also an extremely pretty and quaint historic town that's been there for hundreds of years. You've got Kirkwall, which has a bit more of a sort of fishing lean to it, as well as the main link then inter-island to the North Isles. You've got the old First and Second World War naval base at Lyoness, which used to have Scapa Flow and the historic Grand Fleet and Home Fleet used to be based there at Anchor and the supporting services of that. And all of those sort of come with a long history. So Lyoness is itself no longer used for the Royal Navy. They left in about 1954, 55, leaving behind a significant area of land needing redevelopment. 7 metre deep quays, and all this has sort of left us with a large infrastructure that needs maintaining, upkeeping, but there's also a lifeline service for a lot of the harbour. So as a harbour, we provide a lot of the lifeline and the marine side of that. So getting to and from, getting fuel to and from, getting people to and from, all the goods coming in and out comes through us. That's quite an important place to keep going. Previously, before 1974, the main economic drivers were sort of fish and agriculture, being the island staples. And 1974, with the development of Flotta and the Flotta oil tanks and production facility, that changed to oil, which became a major supporter and a major income for both the islands, but also the harbour. And has continued to do so. But as the oil fields dwindle in the North Sea, and we're moving from a change from one state of energy to another, there's a significant shift. So that sort of dependency, we need to sort of wean ourselves off before it goes. And therefore, we're looking at what is the future. And part of the Harbour Master Plan is creating a new future, a new oil facility, or an non-oil dependent facility that looks to replace oil within the economy with something else. And Orkney has been at the forefront of offshore renewables in the form of tide as well as wind energy for a long time. Mainly tide with EMEC and their tidal demonstrators around here. Yeah, but with offshore wind coming in, that's a fantastic opportunity there. And with the way it's being set up, you're talking about a sustainable 20-25 year rotation of structures that need to be created somewhere. So for us, Deepwater Quay is part of that, as well as our other improvements to Lyoness, also to Hatston, to be able to support that sort of change in economy from oil and gas to offshore energy. I think it's probably the best way of putting it.
part of the fair and just transition, essentially, that Scotland is pursuing on a wider basis. Yeah. So, Gareth, for yourself, from sort of the economic, I mean, the side, presumably the jobs drive, to replace jobs with good quality employment will be a key factor, I'm guessing, as part of all of this.
Yeah, it will. We've had the, as Jim said, the sort of dependence on the oil industry from 1974, and that we have through the harbour we also have we have tugs and pilot boats and VTS, so we can run the operation safely. And I don't think that we can imagine life that without those kind of things now, because they're absolutely essential to the safe operation of people passing through the Pentland Firth. So we've got all of that infrastructure, and what we've been seeing over the last, I suppose, 20 years is the gradual decline of the number of tankers. There are small blips when small satellite fields get plugged into the Piper or Flotta pipeline, and then you get a few more ships, but basically it's a terminal decline, no pun intended, but that we are going to see the end of oil at some point, and I think we see a great opportunity to transition to a clean green economy. We're interested in having greener vessels. We run the ferry fleet, so we're looking at how can we replace the ferry fleet with something that's green, and particularly if we can get a fuel, electric hydrogen or a derivative of hydrogen to produce that locally and run our fleet, then we can see that, and the whole thing sort of comes together. We've got the ScotWind opportunity. A couple of those ScotWind sites are pretty close to Orkney and Scapa Flow, and in Scapa Flow we've got that natural asset that is probably pretty much underused. There's a huge amount of space there, and I think we could see that it's ideal for wet storage. And we would see a huge opportunity there from developers to come put their turbines together here and then deploy them from here when there are weather windows that allow them to do so.
And then you've got the natural location for the ongoing operation and maintenance base as well, I'm guessing, as part of that. Would it be possible for you sort of to break Jim, you partially covered this in your initial response, but obviously Scapa will be the big talking point here. It's the big beast in amongst the development, but I'm aware it is part of a plan, and you have different locations which will have different purposes. Did you want to give us a brief overview of how that all pieces together, obviously assuming the master plan maybe does come into fruition?
Yeah, so as with any harbour authority, a master plan really needs to cover the entirety of the harbour authority area. We decided to break it down into two basic areas. The first part of the master plan was those that tend to be more economic drivers, and the bigger economic drivers in the Orkney economy, and then those that are more the sort of lifeline services, the smaller piers and harbours, which we've yet to move on to. So within the master plan, we were looking at the future. The big one was creation of a new deep water quay of 15 metres to 20 metres. Initially quite modest, but working with developers, actually turning into a 22-hectare site, capable of producing quite large structures and getting them out and maintaining them. But based on that, there was the churning of Hatston into something that's then able to support that in the O&M sort of side. But also arrives with improved terminal facilities for Ro-Ro, into terminal facilities for cruise and that ongoing business that we have there. But also looking at local vessels to provide an 800-ton, 1,000-ton ship lift that allows the salmon boats that work here, the fishing boats, our own ferries, the tugs, to be able to lift it out on island and be maintained here, rather than having to spend a day's transit to another, the next local port that can do that sort of work. So that brings and anchors, a marine industry that already exists here, but also allows it to develop and grow. And then it's using the existing site of Line S with the ex-World War I and World War II pier. Not quite deep enough to go for the offshore wind in the construction side, but actually just perfect for storage of change cables, anchors, whatever you need to do. It's that facility to have another 4 or 5 hectares of laydown space that you can use for all the other ancillaries you need with offshore wind and offshore energy and the focus of that. And then moving on to some of the facilities we've got. So we've still got space at Copeland's Dock. It's a little bit of a underutilized pier there, but there's space there to also do O&M, offshore maintenance, whatever you need to do. That's another place with some opportunity to build your office space, etc., that you can go and generate more space for the marine industry to use.
So plenty to do. It's certainly going to be a busy period, which is excellent. It's encouraging there to hear that there is a role for your existing marine fleet, your existing business, which will be really important to your local population. It's not all just about these mega jobs, mega developments. I mean, I'm sure that will be really, really important to the local fleet. To give enhanced services for them will be, I would imagine, really important to you from what you're saying there.
Yeah, it is, both from our own side, but also from those owners and operators who base themselves out of here. It's important to have on the north coast of Scotland somewhere where you can do repairs, be able to lift vessels of certain sizes out, and to be able to provide that is an important part of the sort of overall development, because then you start to get the marine cluster around engineering, which is what we need for the offshore energy. So you need to provide that sort of facility. So if you go into tidal, the current leading developers are 800,000 ton vessels in effect, and if we can help support those in what is the ideal tidal area for them, then that's another string to the bow that we bring.
Exciting stuff then. Absolutely, really good to hear about that. So putting this all together, we're obviously aware SCAPA is planned, it's in procurement. I should have said we're obviously advising you on that project. That's kind of why you're speaking to me. Obviously, final investment decisions need to be made. Nothing is guaranteed, but how do we see that in an ideal world? The programme for that coming together, presumably to align with wider Scotland development. You mentioned, Gareth, the adjacent wind farms. How would the ideal programme come together if everything was right on the night?
I suppose if we get everything and a decision that the council then is able to get that final investment decision with a positive result, that should then align with the first of the wind farm developers and their programs for build out. That there are I suppose the fixed bottom technology is it's more tried and tested. So we anticipate that the first developer will be fixed bottom technology that would be looking to come to use facilities in Orkney. They're also I think probably the closest. I think I'm can't quite. The other floating turbines are probably just slightly further away, but probably in the longer term, the floating technology is probably the one that has greater potential. But we're hoping for a final investment decision sometime middle of next year. And like the best laid plans, everything is dependent on so many things coming together, all at the right time. There's planning applications, there's licensing requirements, etc., and all of those things. But we're working towards getting a report to the council that they can take a final investment decision sometime middle of next year. And I suppose we've got an awful lot of balls in the air at the moment, and we hope that we can keep them all there and get that decision sometime next year.
A juggler extraordinaire to your many talents, I guess. Yes, that must be part of it. I mean, you mentioned there the difference in the technologies that are being pursued for the offshore wind industry. I mean, Jim, I know that the handling of the fixed bottom solution can present some real challenges in a harbour, because these are great big steel structures. Given any thought to that? I mean, presumably the space you mentioned will help. Having that space, but these are not for the faint-hearted. These things, moving them about, as I understand it, they're major structures. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So if we go into the standard fixed bottom is going to be large. I mean, they're still going to be, over 300 meters tall, blade length of 107 meters. That's, if people see them driving around roads in the UK at the moment, it's double the length of that. It's longer than some of the ferries we've got running here from the mainland. And if you then take that into the offshore floating side, you're talking the size of a 4,000 tons. You're basically talking the size of a small oil production facility that we currently have in the North Sea. So the oil rigs, you replace those, you put a windmill on the top, and they get to 370 meters. So it's taller than London Eye. It's as tall as the Shard. You're talking about some really large pieces of equipment which need the space and the ability to do it. And one of the benefits that we have, that we're unique in Northern Europe, but also in Scotland, is that jewel, which is Scapa Flow, which gives you protected anchorage that you can sort of rack and stack them. So over the winter build, you can build as many as you can, as fast as you can, stack them up in that when it comes to the spring, summer, and the weather drops, to be able to get them out, you can then get them out on the site and install them quicker than if you're trying to build them one at a time, or you're constrained by space. So there's a significant opportunity there, but it also allows us to tie into the wider Scottish economy with regards to that, because there isn't really one space in Scotland that is a do-all, a fix-all. We need to work together as ports, and we are doing.
Well, it's interesting you talked about that collaboration. We've had roundtable events about the Green Freeport initiatives, and coming out of there, and they will be published as part of this series as well. Coming out of there was that need for collaboration, because there is such a demand coming up for space. I mean, we simply do not have, as I understand it, the capacity within the current infrastructure to deal with all this. And without that, land-based infrastructure, how do we deliver all these offshore initiatives? So I wondered, I mean, obviously your own project will be what's most important to the council, but is there dialogue, is there discussion about, Orkney's role in the wider delivery programme? I mean, I'm sure government has a view on that. The Scottish Government, I should say. Any thoughts on that? Either Gareth, yourself maybe first, and I'll come back to you, Jim, again, if that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We're keen to collaborate, both with ports in other areas where we see that that they may be able to put some turbines together, but they probably won't have space to store them. But also locally, because Scapa Flow is that huge natural asset, and we can see that there are opportunities for other people locally to make use of Scapa Flow, and particularly that supply chain element that we sort of touched on earlier, because we've had a number of rigs in here and accommodation units from the North Sea. There's been a bit of a supply chain build-up and expertise on dealing with offshore structures, so we can see that those local marine operators that have sort of to a degree cut their teeth on oil activities will be able to adapt to working with great big similar types of structures that need a whole lot of support, and then once it actually gets to the deployment of the turbines, there's going to be that O&M activity, and we will be ideally placed to support those wind farms from a number of our ports, but probably particularly the Hatston and Stromness, and I can't sort of let it go without mentioning the Hudson Bay Company. That we've had that ancient historic links with worldwide trade stopping in at Stromness. So I think that will surely continue.
Having that name must be a big asset for the island. You mentioned there obviously that local supply chain. You mentioned the skill transfer from technologies developed and methodology developed for oil and gas, and how transferable it is to this. I mean, so I know that we've put into the contract conditions contractual provisions or intended contractual conditions about community benefits, and obviously that could be quite vague and conceptual, but certainly I imagine it'll be quite high in the priority list to genuinely create local supply opportunities for SMEs and other local-based businesses. So, we've put that in, but obviously we'll have to engage with you to think about what will be a compelling and strong offer. And like any council, I'm sure you want as many local jobs created and sustained as you can. So we look forward to working with you on that. But any kind of high-level thoughts about that? I mean, organising local events for the supply chain. I mean, obviously the council has to wear two hats. You're the procuring authority, but at the same time you are an economic development agency for your local area. So any thoughts on that? Bidder days, supply days, encouraging that kind of stuff that might happen?
Absolutely. We've been actually we've had several already. So that work is ongoing, and we will be doing more. We've been working sort of collaboratively with Highlands and Islands Enterprise to try and promote the opportunities that are there. And I think we're probably seeing an element of some businesses also positioning themselves. That we've seen one or two engineering companies establishing a presence in Orkney, because I think that's probably with a bit of an eye to the future and seeing that there is a real opportunity coming our way. And it's all still to be won, but I think we are seeing people positioning themselves to be here to make the most of the opportunity when it does hopefully arrive.
So gear up and be ready. Inform yourself. Make yourself aware of the council's intended programme. As and when a preferred contractor may be appointed, align with their programmes. Make yourself known to them, and I suppose you'll support that effort as best you can as an authority. I'm sure. Well, these are always there is always that dynamic of which bit of me is procuring authority, which bit is economic development, but the two can usually meet quite well in the middle, in my experience, and we'll certainly do our best to support that. I suppose the next kind of logical thing to touch on, gentlemen, is sort of the funding model. I mean, this is kind of the holy grail of everyone who is looking at this, because as I said, when we were first introduced to you, you're putting in infrastructure of the generations. Ports and harbours are not short-term quick fixes, low cost. They're a very expensive infrastructure. They last a very long time, and therefore paying for it is a burden. So we know this is going to be a challenge, and I know you don't have a full solution yet, but sort of high level, Gareth, whether when we talk about what kind of things you've gone through, the kind of potential sources of cash to help the council support this initiative would be good to hear about.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It is a challenge. In the past, when we've seen major developments, we've seen, like the Flotta oil terminal, that was, private investment that came in. The council facilitated through having ownership of the land. So that was a model that, that worked in 1974. What we're probably expecting here is that we've made an application to the UK government's FLOMIS scheme, so we're hopeful that we might get something out of that. We've also made an application to the SIM process, which was the SOEC offshore wind process, and we've got through the first stage of that. Hopefully that then leads to conversations with the offshore wind developers who will look to support the projects that they see as being critical to their success. So I think that's the idea there. And we've also heard the announcement recently of the Scottish Government's 500 million, 100 million a year. We would be more than happy to help accommodate some of that investment. And we have also then been looking at other sources of equity investment, and there have been a number of partners or parties rather who have approached the council just on the when we've put the PIN notice out to say that that this opportunity was coming along, and that has attracted attention from several parties that are saying, well, they're looking for an infrastructure investment, be that for pension funds or other just people that are interested in investing in port facilities. So there is a fair bit of interest in the opportunity. We're still working out how that may be best presented, but it's certainly got a fair bit of interest in it. There are other opportunities that the council has the ability to go to borrow money, but I suppose the feeling of our elected members is that this is probably something that they would look for it to be funded out with the council, because it's no great shock or surprise that the council is also needing to run its own other services and taking on debt and risk at this particular moment when our revenue budgets are so constrained is not something that's a particularly attractive route. So looking for it to be financed really out with the council, and there seems to be the bones of an ability to do that. So that's what we're working on.
I mean, the project has fantastic ESG credentials. I mean, we've talked about the greening and the transformation of energy into that. It absolutely is pivotal to support offshore wind development. We've touched that there is a shortage of relevant facilities throughout Scotland. So for an investment criteria, if green is on your agenda, you can offer that by the spade load, I would have suggested. So I can see why it would be an attractive opportunity. And I guess the dynamic, as we're understanding it, is you both know you need each other. There is a mutual interdependency here. You want to provide the infrastructure, you want to provide the ports. Offshore operators need you to provide it because they need the space. And I suppose it's how those two programs come together when an operator is willing to make those financial commitments that will bring that revenue certainty into the port, that will help underpin the project finance solution. That'll be the dynamic that will be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple of years. But it's needed. There's no doubt about that in my mind. It is needed, and I'm confident you'll get a good uptake.
The other party in there is particularly the Scottish Government and Crown Estate, because I see the project as being an unlock, or unlocking the key to getting the ScotWind sites built out. And the quicker that the ScotWind sites are built out, the quicker those lease agreements with the Crown Estate are concluded, and the revenues start to flow back to Scottish Government. So
very substantial. Yeah,
it's quite a prize for Scottish Government to get this project built out, as well as for all the other competing or collaborative projects that are elsewhere, because the quicker they get the turbines out there turning and we are producing green electrons, the better for the Scottish economy.
Definitely. I'll touch on this one. Another theme that came out of our engagement this week, and it's the boring and the mundane. It's housing and education, and obviously, if you do generate an influx of people. I mean, obviously, north of Scotland, Orkney is no exception. Creating good quality, affordable housing is a challenge for everyone. So I'm guessing that'll be part of this, to think about housing solution for workers, and then in the construction phase, and then potentially through to the longer term if you are successful in retaining these jobs. So that'll be another challenge, I guess, you'll be thinking about down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that's we're seeing that with the potential for our cable to the Scottish mainland getting built out in a substation in a smaller scale. So we've got that housing demand that is a very real problem. But there's also opportunities there to build some good quality new housing and to bring investment into the economy through that route. So I think it's a challenge, but it's one that I think we relish.
So I'm maybe going to think about wrapping up things, gentlemen, but I'm going to pretend I am David Tennant and I'm back in the role of Doctor Who, and I am going to take us forward 3 to 4 years from now, or maybe 5 years, and I'll come to both of you. What vision would you want to see? What position, if you had all your wishes come true, would you see Orkney in in that kind of time frame in terms of the developments we've been talking about? That would be just a way to wrap up both of your hopes and aspirations for the future, so to speak. Maybe you first, Jim.
The future is an all-green port running on green fuels, supported by offshore wind. The excess wind coming in here being turned into green fuels and being exported. A strong local green economy supporting both the outbuild and the continued maintenance of those. A real step change in that sort of maritime power, continue to be a strategic point. The return maybe of defence up here, increasing with tidal, looking into new and interesting ways of farming the sea. So, bigger offshore fish farms, talking super scale, seaweed opportunities, seaweed growing opportunities, the ability to think differently, and then to power up our fleets and vessels in a different way.
So loads of opportunities there potentially for the marine economy wider. Gareth, yourself, your dream in 5 years, you don't say retired and living happily. I suspect maybe that might actually be all of our aspirations, but for Orkney and its marine environment.
Certainly, I don't hope to see any Daleks. So with your, although I don't know if David Tennant had Daleks, but I wasn't a big fan of Doctor Who at that point, or probably never was. But I think similar. I want to see our ferries operating on green fuels, if not electrons. Some of them perhaps on electrons. And that transition and facilitating things like the hydrogen hub that Repsol have got planned for Flotta, so you can see that that we have transitioned from that oil economy to an electric or hydrogen derived from electrons produced by the turbines that have been built and put together here, and that are continuing to be maintained here, so that we can. I think there's a huge opportunity for something that's globally change. The hydrogen hub powered by offshore wind. So that we can then, have green fuels that are, carbon zero. Then I think we'll have achieved a huge amount for such a small place. I think we can really do a lot. There are other things that we're, looking at tidal developments here, and I think we could see a huge amount of progress on, the tidal power again. Going into or feeding into a hydrogen hub where you're, just producing fuels for the rest of the world, and doing it on a completely virtuous basis, that you're generating green electrons to create blue fuels. Is that the right colours? I'm not sure.
I think you are. It sounds good to me anyway. Gents, that's been a fantastic chat. I really appreciate you coming on to the call, and you've given us a real good insight as to what might be happening and lots of exciting stuff going on. We look forward to working with you and hopefully to a successful delivery of those dreams. If that, we'll call it a night. Thank you again.